Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Indie Creative Comics Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Angel, with John Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It is going. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I've been sick. I've been sick all week. So Monday was like it was like a little bit of a relief for me because I was laid out Monday. So
the
sick.
weather's changing. So I
Yeah.
looked at my watch this morning. It was 41 degrees.
Yep.
I was like, holy crap! But you know what though? I'm excited for this fall into winter.
Yeah.
We had a really brutal summer, so it was hot. For those of you that don't know, John and I are on the East Coast, so it's weird. Like we'll get fall all the way probably up to like January, and then for like February and March, it'll be freezing balls out here.
Yeah. But it's supposed to be a cold winter this year, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, gang. Welcome to another episode of the Indie Creative Comics Podcast. This is the Indie Comics Review. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, I know it's Thursday, not Monday. You can blame me. It was me. We were all scheduled to go, and something came up, and told John, "Listen, let's just get it in on Thursday." And then that's not the only screw up. So I ended up reading books from this week instead of last week that we were supposed to catch up on. So we're gonna have a pish posh of this week and last week's book, and then next week I'll briefly talk about books that I read from last week. Next week. Yeah, I'm catching
We're
up.
doing a little time machine. We're doing a little time machine action.
Yeah, which is crazy because that's going to go with the title that I actually read today. That whole thing.
Yeah, it's again, it was fun because Monday, man, I'm sounding a lot better now, but I was very husky voiced. It would have been like, "Hi, I'm here to review comics." So I'm like feeling a lot better. So yeah, Monday was actually a relief for me. That was great. Using the term husky because I think there's some other content creators out there that one of their co-hosts was recently sick, and they kind of co-opted the term horse. They even did a little graphic. They turned his face into a horse. So, I love the guys. They're great. They're from Australia. The Weekend Planet is their weekly podcast. They do what they call Caravan of Garbage. I always like to give them a shout out because I do steal a lot of bits from them anyway.
Nice.
But I acknowledge it. But horse, I'm not going to do that. So I was husky voiced.
Oh, man. All right, cool. So we do have some comics that we read, and this is an opportunity for John and I, to really talk about the medium that we really love so much, but to shine a light on more independent, more creator-owned, small press. I know we have a ton of Image books on here, and we keep calling them small press, but they are the third largest publisher out there. But their content is creator-owned, which is really important to us. Which means all those creations that are put out by Image Comics are owned by the creator. They own the rights. They can do whatever they want with them, movie rights, whatever they want to do, keep publishing through Image. So that's the reason why we bring them up. We also have Dark Horse and Oni Press and Dynamite and all these guys. They're a little bit larger than I would say small press, especially like Dark Horse. They're a bigger medium. But a lot of stuff that they have out there doesn't, get the light of day. So we try to get as much as we can out there. I know that I spoke last week in regards to we've been kicking up a lot, or I've been kicking up a lot with support for crowdfunding. So been on Kickstarter a lot. Starting to get, oh my gosh, I did 13 or 14 projects that I supported. I'm going to go broke, bro. Over the last probably 3 weeks or so. Some of them are still in the running or they're still going. But got, I believe, 1 or 2 of them in. So I'm reading them now, and then I'm going to kind of just give my 2 cents on them over the next couple of weeks and stuff like that, and just let you know what's out there in regards to the crowdfunding scene.
Cool.
Which is cool. So yeah. So but
the other reason why we do concentrate on publishers like Image and Dark Horse and Oni and some of these other ones is because these are big enough companies where they are available in your local comic shop. So it's easier to pick something up without funding something or just being able to walk into a shop and pick something up off the rack that maybe if we you see us and we recommend it and you give it a shot, but yes, the idea for moving more and more into the Kickstarter crowdfunded realm is great to get that exposure as well. But yeah, these are things where it's like, these are out, they're fresh on the stands, and you could just go into your local comic shop, and if they're worth their salt, they'll have them or they'll get them for you.
Yes. And we're not a, one place, get everything in one place kind of. There's so many different places you can get them. Obviously, we love for you to support your local comic shop. I love the brick and mortar. I love walking into certain comic shops because it's like walking back in time in some of these places. And, just the feel of, dude, I can still remember walking in every week, not knowing what was coming out that week, and just looking at the wall, looking at all the new signs underneath the comics that they had. It was probably one of the best feelings when I grew up. Ruined that all, but
even though I work at a shop, I don't necessarily do the ordering and all that. So I have as far as like a broad range, like a broad knowledge of like things that are going to be coming out, like, big ticket books are going to be coming out in November, things like that. You have that broad knowledge, but I still try my best to maintain that weekly surprise. So I actually rely on the site that you help put together for the store. Sunday morning, I get on there and that's when I know exactly what's coming out for that week. So I still try to maintain that like level of that week to week surprise. I don't, so this is great because that's where I pick a lot of these books. I don't know a lot about these books until I see them listed on the site on Sunday, and then I'm looking at them on Tuesday. So
yes. And actually I have access to the file that gets updated. So I'm looking at all these number ones that are coming out, and then I'm looking at, all right, who's the publisher? And if it's Image, if it's Dark Horse, I'm even more excited because it's like, all right, there's a possibility. And then I'm reading the synopsis and I'm like, nope. History, nope. Anthropomorphic, nope. That sounds interesting. And then that's how we go. But it allows us to actually broaden our horizons in regards to the material that we read. So I jokingly say that I don't like anthropomorphic and I don't like history stuff. But if it's interesting enough, and sometimes I won't even order the book online. And when I get to the store, if I look at the art and that grabs me, holy crap, I pick it up and then it becomes a book that I read for that week. So it could be anything. So just make sure. So in other words, make sure your synopsis for your book is intriguing enough that makes me want to go, all right, I'll pick that up. All right, cool. So we do have some reviews for you, but before we get into the reviews, we also have some news. All right, a couple of quick things. So quick announcements. Yes, this is still going on. We are officially launching in November. So there's a QR code up there in the left-hand corner. You can click on it. It brings you to the pre-launch page for Project Shadow Breed, the reboot. John and I just had a really sort of lengthy conversation because he got a reader's copy.
Yeah, I know a guy.
He knows a guy.
Send me a copy.
Of Project Shadow Breed, and we just had some really good back and forth on that. We're going to talk more about it, not today, but we'll talk about what John felt about it when we bring out our next guest, who's going to be who also has an advanced copy and does a whole bunch of crowdfunding reviews. But yeah, we're really excited about this project. So it's coming out in November. Just make sure you go over to projectshadowbreed.com and it'll take you right to the Kickstarter launch page. You can just sign up to get notified when it does go live. We've got some really great stuff on there that's not going to be available once the Kickstarter is over. So we've got Kickstarter specific, I don't want to say prizes, but treats that come along with the book, which I'm really excited about. And it's going to be really limited quantity on that. Next, we have Dennis Robinson. He's going to be back on the show. We're going to be chatting with him next week as he has a Kickstarter that he's launching in November as well. It's a continuation of his book, Lycan, Solomon's Odyssey. I think he's up to issue 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. And what I really love about what this type of creator does with these type of campaigns, and a lot of creators do it as well, is that even though it's issue 4, issues 1 through 3 would be available in the Kickstarter campaign as well until he gets to whatever graphic novel he can put together. So just because it's issue 4, don't brush it off and say, oh no, wait, but you can hop right in and even get digitized copies of the earlier ones. And if you want to go back and get the earlier copies, you can. Really neat guy. We're looking forward to chatting with him. So look out for his interview next week sometime. And then we have more people that we're going to be bringing on, which is fantastic. I'm really excited. They're starting to come in little by little. It's just making time. Like I'm looking at the calendar and I'm like, holy crap, we might be going into like January-ish where I'm like pushing people off because we've got people coming up, which is exciting. Other stuff here. So you were talking about podcasts that you listen to and stuff like that. Every now and then I'm on Bleeding Cool and they have some cool stories. What I found interesting today was the day everything changed. You ever hear of that podcast?
Yeah.
It's a drama podcast. Yeah, it's a drama podcast. Has been going on for quite a bit, and it's sort of like this post-apocalyptic world, compared to like Walking Dead, and it's been going on for quite some time. But now it's going to actually become a comic. So it's going to be a 4-issue series, and they're going to have parts of stories that are going to be added into the story that weren't part of the original drama. So I thought it was pretty cool, taking it from one medium, bringing it into the next medium, and looking at the cover and stuff like that. It looks pretty cool. So it'd be interesting. I mean, it's probably another zombie book. It'd be interesting to see what they do with that trope. I've never heard the podcast, so I'm contemplating as to whether or not I want to listen to the podcast first and then get the book, or get the book and then maybe listen to the podcast and see which one I enjoyed more. But yeah, it's called The Day Everything Changed. Who's the creative team? Is written by Lane Fortenberry and drawn by Matthias DiVincenzo and lettered by Marina Leone. So look out for that. Yeah, if we do get it, definitely we'll put it on the show and let you know what we thought about it, which would be really cool. Other news, I know it's not indie comic news, but I just have to mention it because I was super, super sad. Diane Keaton.
La-di-da.
Dude,
yeah.
I caught her not in her beginning of her career because I wasn't born yet, in the 80s. So I think the first movie I ever saw her in was Baby Boom.
Baby Boom. That was a lot of folks our age entry. Yeah. I had an awareness
80s.
of her before that, but yeah, because my older siblings and my dad loved, Godfather and Woody Allen, Annie Hall.
You know what's crazy? I've never seen that movie.
Godfather?
In its entirety. I think I've always watched like the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then for some reason I just walk away. So I've never watched it in its entirety.
You shut the door like Michael shuts the door on Diane Keaton at the end of the movie.
Yeah. She was young, right?
That was a very early role for her. I don't know if it was her first, but that was like her first big role. And then of course after that was Annie Hall, which she just lights up the screen in that movie. And just an amazing career. I think we also owe her for Michael Douglas changing his name to Michael Keaton. I think he has said that was because there was already a Michael Douglas
correct
in SAG, so he had to change his name, and I think he was a big fan of hers, and so he's like, I'm taking her last name.
Is that real? Is that real?
I think that's the story. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I believe it. And funny. So if you guys don't know, in SAG, there can only be one of a person.
It's like the Highlander.
Yeah, like the Highlander, there can only be one.
Not only one person in SAG, but only one person with that name. Yeah.
Correct.
So like Michael Fox had to add the J because there was already a Michael Fox, right?
And that would be the same for Michael B. Jordan, right?
Yes, because Michael Jordan has
Space Jam,
and I believe the commercials, the Nike commercials.
Those count too as well, right?
I think that counts as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hysterical. So yeah, I think I just read today because when it initially came out, there wasn't a cause. I think the cause was they said pneumonia. Our family said so. Yeah, I mean she was 79.
Yeah.
Just it's crazy. Well, and also I mean if you grew up in sort of like the 80s and with the hip hop and R&B stuff, D'Angelo, dude, 51 years old.
Yeah.
51. That's 1 year born before I was. So that's way too young. And I think he passed away from pancreatic cancer. So.
Yeah, he had been fighting it for a few years now. My brother actually, when he was in advertising, did a project with D'Angelo, which he has a very interesting story about that, where basically D'Angelo had to come up with, I think it was for Budweiser. He wrote a song that was reflective of him, but would be applied to, to Budweiser for the commercial. They rented out the studio space to record it. They had it like a block from like 12 to 6 p.m. and he just kept going, like playing pool for like first few hours or whatever. And then finally someone came in and said, look, he wants you to respect his process. So if you could all just kind of clear out of the studio and give him these last couple hours to do what he needs to do. And my brother knew that meant that he wanted to do his, what is now legal recreational prep, and then just go in and belt out these lyrics in the only way that he felt comfortable or knew how to do. So it was a pretty fascinating story. I'd forgotten that my brother had done that work with him, and he just posted about it recently. But yeah, another great talent. Yeah.
Yeah, way too young though. That's crazy.
Yeah. A lot in that world too. A lot of them. I mean, MF Doom, 49.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's someone put a whole list of just a lot of hip hop artists that right around 50. That just Biz Markie, 51. Also,
yeah.
Just sad.
It's insane. Oh, and then I got to watch. I know I'm going to go off on a tangent, but I couldn't recommend more or any more this freaking documentary, John Candy.
I saw the trailer for that. It looks great.
Dude, listen, he was great actor. Loved almost everything he did. Just because I grew up with him in that 80s era where he was doing like freaking Uncle Buck and Splash and a ton of stuff. But it was crazy to see the life that he lived. He died at 43, which is fucking insane. Yeah. And his father died, I think, young, 35 or something. Yeah. 5 years when he was 5 years old. But a superb human being, and I think everybody that crossed paths with him never had anything bad to say about him.
Seemed like a real genuine, nice guy.
Yeah. It's fucking Canadians. That's what it is. It's just Canadians. They're just all nice.
Again, because of like my older siblings, I actually grew up watching a lot of SCTV before John Candy started showing up in movies,
which competed with SNL.
Which could try to a little bit, yeah. Yes. And so I would always resonated with me with him. Was he would do a parody of the Hulk TV show called The Incredible Bulk. Okay. And it just that image of John Candy as the Hulk, it's just as the Bulk is always will stick with me. And again, those early movies that he did, like Stripes and things like that. He was a great supporting guy. Yes. And I got these great lead roles, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, like you said. I mean, just always a delight, always a treasure on screen. Now, granted, as a very young kid, because I think he also impersonated him as well on SCTV. But there was a while there when I was really young that I thought John Candy and John Madden were actually the same guy.
I can see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. But yeah, it's so good, and to live the life that he lived. Listen, watch it. It's on Amazon Prime if you have it. It's such a great documentary. The one thing that really blew me away is, and I'm gonna ruin it, so spoiler. At his funeral, they closed the 405 in Canada, and it had only ever been done twice before. And I think it was for 405 is in California, wherever it was. They had closed it for the president and for somebody else, the Pope. That was it, and John Candy.
Wow.
So yeah, up in Canada they closed it, and it was crazy. And all those guys, Eugene Levy, Dan Aykroyd,
Martin Short.
Yeah, Martin Short. What's the guy from Spaceballs?
I was just gonna Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis, and I always forget her name. She was on Schitt's Creek. Eugene Levy,
Catherine O'Hara,
yes,
Joe Flaherty, all these guys, yeah,
such great people. I mean, Canadians. I should have been born Canadian.
Dave Thomas, not Wendy's Dave Thomas, but the comedian. And again, Strange Brew, right? Rick Moranis, Dave Thomas.
But it's insane that whole group made something of themselves.
Oh yeah,
which is insane. And he played. I can go on and on, but just watch it. John Candy, I Like Me. There's some really effed up stuff that I just didn't like, especially like in the 80s, how newscasters or journalists would treat him. Just asking him certain questions about his weight and stuff like that. And always cordial and polite, but you can see the shift in his eyes to almost sadness and, just anger, which is crazy.
It was a bit of a, not a stigma, but it was sort of like a given, in that era, especially, fat is funny.
Right.
Will Ferrell, I think, has this anecdote where when he first started out, he was very skinny. And he, wasn't getting the laughs that he wanted. And he said, I'm going to gain weight because a bigger me will be funnier. And, again, that was that era. We're kind of moving away from that as people are a little more health conscious. And now comedy can be very broad. But yeah, it was clearly something he struggled with. And it wasn't intentional, but it was something that he leaned into in order to make his mark.
Yeah.
And made him iconic and recognizable. So it's double-edged sword there.
It did. Yeah, great. Yeah, like I said, I can't recommend it enough. Definitely check it out. All right, that brings us to the end of our news, which brings us right into our reviews. Here's the deal. I messed up, not just the days, but the books as well, the weeks. So John has books from last week that he's going to review, and I was supposed to read books from last week as well, but I ended up reading a book from this week. So we're going to kind of mishposh it, and then next week I'll mention out the books that I read from, or I should have read for last week off that. So for you guys that listen, for the most part, it won't matter. It comes just to recommendations and to books that we've read for any particular week. So I'm going to let John goes first because he has 3 of them. So take it away, brother. Which one is first?
All right. The first one is going to be from Image, Top Cow. So that is another imprint of Image. Top Cow was Mark Silvestri's old company that he created, I think, outside of when he had left Image, and then came back and they absorbed it and is now an imprint, or has been for quite some time. So this is called Death to Pachuco, and it is written, co-designed, and lettered by Henry Barajas. Art and art direction by Rachel Merrill. Color art by Lee Loffridge. Edited by Will Dennis. And there's also, I like this, that there's a Spanish proofreader, Rocio Pichon Riviere, and proofreader, Kate Newton. And main cover has a gorgeous David Lapham of Stray Bullets. Always love his work. Highly recommend his stuff. So great cover there. If you don't know what Pachuco is, because a lot of people look at it as like, oh, Death to Pacheco, but Carlos Pacheco died, unfortunately. Right on the first page, it gives you a nice definition: a young Mexican American having a taste for flashy clothes and a special jargon, and usually belonging to a neighborhood gang. Literally from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says there, which is great. Nice. So this is very similar to Roots of Madness from I think a week before that I talked about, where this is about a specific cultural experience and set, a group of people living in Los Angeles in 1943. It starts on June 3rd in 1943, and there is a lot of tension, a lot of racial tension in Los Angeles, especially directed towards Mexicans and Mexican Americans. And it's very, very interesting that a phrase that gets repeated often in this comic is it's a bad time to be a Mexican. And I wonder how far back Henry Barajas was thinking of this story, and in light of current events and current things that are happening, I think it's that the timeliness of it is great. I think because this is really catching something that is happening now to a degree, but also looking back at the past and saying this, this has happened before. Things like this have happened before, not just to Hispanic, but obviously the Japanese during World War II and so forth, other cultures being marginalized, ostracized, and abused to a certain degree. So this centers around a private investigator, and he is hired to investigate the murder of another Mexican, and a woman is framed for the murder, and she has a twin sister, and of course this private investigator is immediately attracted to both of them, and so he is sort of working through you know, the case. And like most private detectives in the crime noir, fiction that is, centered in this specific time period, he has flaws. He's not perfect. So it is a skin that can be worn by any private investigator trope. But using this cultural background is fantastic, because one of the things that I think you had read something recently that did this as well, and I loved it here, is when he's talking to other Mexicans and Mexican Americans, other Hispanics, they're going back and forth between English and Spanish. And that happens in this book, and they don't give you translations, but it is so seamless and conversational. And then that if you don't know Spanish, you don't necessarily know what everything they're saying is. There's enough common vernacular that is used that kind of help you fill in the gap, but also there's the English parts of it will back up and sort of give you a contextual definition of what they're talking about. So I thought that was really cool. I thought that was real. I thought it was it really helped pull you into this world and kind of give you a nice sense of familiarity and community with these characters. And so you basically have a lot of suspects and a lot of things going on. Part of it does have to do with some military, like the Navy guys who, in the opening scene, they just are starting to beat up people in a movie theater because they're Hispanic. And that kind of is a through line throughout. There's definitely an element of the KKK in Los Angeles in here. Two characters are talking. One is like, "Oh, you should come to one of our meetings," and the other guy's like, "Nah, I don't need one of your meetings. I'm fine. But I just want to, why do you guys only wear the sheets at night?" I thought it was a very funny line there. So a really good setup. This is all building towards a historical event. There were these riots in June of 1943 in LA, known as the Zoot Suit riots, because again, you are dealing with a lot of jazz clubs and, flashy clothes, zoot suits, wide brimmed hats, that sort of like the peacocking in that culture, which is really neat. The art is simple, but it is effective. I especially really like the way the jazz clubs are portrayed. Let me see if I can find a good page for that.
It almost looks like Wes Craig.
A little Wes Craig, a little Phil Hester.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like it.
Yeah,
I like the color tones. I'm a little out of focus here.
There's almost a little Mignola in there too.
Little Mignola, which is funny. And again, because I had also read another book right after this by Michael Avon Oeming, and that felt seamless, that transition as well. But the colors are great. They're simple. A lot of washes, for flashbacks or night scenes and stuff. So yeah, really easy to follow, really interesting, entertaining, and thought-provoking, historical, and yet prescient and contemporary. So
you had me until historical. However, did you find it that the tone of the book? Did you find that it was beating you over the head with political views, or it was just the background of the story itself?
That's what's great. It is just like any Maltese Falcon, Raymond Chandler, crime noir, messed up, private detective trying to solve a murder and exonerate the innocent. In a cultural background. Okay. So I didn't feel beaten over the head with any of that. It was just a great character set, community, setting and community to tell this story. Again, this is not historical, but it is what there was a historical thing that this is building up to, which I said, those Zoot Suit riots,
So cool. So tonally, if you read Watchmen, then this would be up your alley as well.
Sure. Or again, it's very much, it's very much a crime noir detective story, and that's what it is at its heart. Again, just with this cultural setting, which again is not my cultural setting. So it was great to kind of look into that world and see how these characters were back then. It feels pretty accurate, to that time period.
Right.
And just like I said, a very fascinating setup, because I do love the old, the private detective gumshoe thing.
Yep.
So that worked really well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question. And the only reason why I'm asking is because oftentimes we read books that are quite generic in regards to the characters themselves and not having much historical context or cultural context, especially like whether it be Hispanic or Asian or whatever it is, like, where it's just based off of that. Did you find yourself separated from the book because culturally you can't relate, or it was just in the background as part of the story? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I would say that I felt welcomed introduced to this community, and to see how these people interact with each other, these characters, when I say people, you could have done it with a detective of European descent. But the thing is, he would have a lot more, he wouldn't have that connection with the people he's trying to help.
Right.
Because he is of the same background and speaks the same language. So I didn't find it, like I said, like I found it refreshing in that respect, that it was giving me a look into something that, a background that I don't have, and not beaten over the head with it. It is just part of the story.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sweet. All right, wonderful. Death to Pachuco. Check it out, guys, from Image Top Cow. All right, why don't you go one more time, because you have 3.
Okay, sure. Next one? So, so I will go with this one. So I mentioned I read another book by Michael Avon Oeming as the artist. So this is from Dark Horse Tiny Onion imprint, which is James Tynion IV's imprint with Dark Horse. And this is Red Book. So this logo might be a little familiar because he's did 2 miniseries called Blue Book.
Blue Book, yes.
And basically what him and Michael Avon Oeming are doing are looking at real life incidences of UFO encounters. And so Blue Book was strictly American. The first miniseries was about New Hampshire couple Betty and Barney Hill, who were the first people to basically say, hey, we were abducted by aliens in the early 60s. Of course, nobody believed them, and that was a mess for them. Then the second one dealt with the summer of 1947, which of course that summer was rife with UFO sightings, culminating in Roswell. So this time he is going the other direction. So instead of America, Red Book, we are in Russia. Nice. And so this begins with the Tunguska meteor crash in 1908. That a lot of people feel was a UFO crashing, in Siberia, and then strange things happened in that area after that, including, this group of 9 hikers who were all found scattered around their campsite in their underwear, not in their gear. And remember, this is Siberia. Some of them had their skulls caved in. Some people had half their faces missing. Like it was tragic and awful. Yeah. And it really did happen. And nobody to this day really knows what happens to them. There was a camera found with, strange light, and they developed the negatives, and there's a strange light in the sky in one picture, and then there's some big hulking guy in another picture, so this basically lays out all of these sort of incidents that happened in Russia through the first half, right deep into the Cold War, because this is very much Cold War set. UFO encounters and experiences that people have had in Russia, including an American who went over there and claims to have met a man from Venus. And what I love about this is this story too, is this guy, this man from Venus is not your typical gray, bug-eyed, big-head alien, which people had seen at times up to that point. This is the 6-foot-tall, blonde, long hair Nordic alien. That again, there are people who claim to have met these type of aliens as well, and the thing with this is, and why this is so steeped in the Cold War, is that both the U.S. and the Russian military realize that they can use these UFO sightings to their advantage and manipulate the public. And so this American who goes to Russia and claims to meet this Venusian, who basically says, you guys got to disarm all your nuclear missiles, because if you have a nuclear holocaust, it won't just destroy your world, it will reverberate across the solar system and the rest of the galaxy. So nice. Your preservation will actually be, the universe's preservation. And so right away, he comes back to the U.S. and he starts talking this, and the U.S. government is like, that guy's a communist. Let's round him up because he's talking about de-escalating our nuclear, capabilities. And so that's kind of the fascinating thing about this, is that it is very Cold War era, and it does look at how, there were things when the Iron Curtain was up before the end of the Cold War, at the end of the 20th century, that there were things that were known about certain incidences that happened in Russia. But once that Iron Curtain went down and there was more freedom of information being exchanged between our country and Russia, that there were details like certain timelines didn't match up. So like these campers that were found on February 26th, it turns out somebody launched an investigation because they thought they were dead on February 5th in Russia. And it's like, well, how does that possible? Because the bodies weren't found until 3 weeks later. So, what really was going on? Who knew what then? And a lot of that stuff is locked away. We'll probably never know the full truth on the timeline and stuff like that. So the way they do this is great. They lay it out. Again, there's comic dialogue, but there's also heavy text. It's Avon Oeming's style is great. A lot of it is like just like a cool like Saul Bass opening credits from like a Hitchcock film or whatnot. Just all this kind of great imagery with the bold, the primary colors. This is just, another volume in James Tynion IV and Michael Avon Oeming's exploration of real life UFO paranormal stories. It does also have the unrelated 8-page backup, which takes place in the 1700s in America. Great black and white, gorgeous art style here. This backup is by, give me a second here, Malachi Ward, and lettered by Aditya Badekar. And this backup has nothing to do with the main story, just like the previous volumes. And each issue had a backup that was just a true weird story that had nothing to do with the paranormal stuff in the alien stuff in the main story. This is an interesting, is it's very much a strange demonic possession witchcraft type story from the late 1700s, pretty much around the birth of this country. I don't know necessarily about the historical validity of that backup story, but it was very neat and a nice little change of pace from what you were reading just before it. So cool. You get a lot of bang for your buck. It's only $3.90. No, this is only $4.99. But you get a lot of good stuff in here. You get 2 good stories, and again, this main story will carry over into the next issues. And then just to finish out the credits here, it's basically it's Tynion, Michael Avon Oeming, and lettered by Tom Napolitano. Good stuff. Glad to see this is back. Glad to see they're going in this direction with it, because this is very fascinating. And again, with everything that's going on right now, this is also kind of contemporary as well. So
Yeah. UFOs. All right, Red Book, Dark Horse, Tiny Onion. Check it out. All right, so it's my turn. Like I said, I screwed up, so I read a book from this week, but it's actually pretty freaking cool. My book is called Save Now from Bad Idea Comics. Oh, what am I talking about? I don't need you. What am I putting you up for? Yeah, so we spoken about Bad Idea. They did some great stuff in the very beginning. I think one of their biggest marketing pieces that they did was they did their first run of books and said that it was a really horrible idea and that they were done. But we knew they weren't done. They've come back. I think this is their third round, if not their third round of books. Save Now. Before I even get into it, I cannot, just like the John Candy movie, cannot recommend this book enough. Dude, this book was so much fun. All right, so creative team. Matt Kend is the writer. Art by Tomas Giorello. Color art by Diego Rodriguez. Letters by DC Hopkins. And then you have a logo design by Scott Sugichi. Really, really, really cool. And then there's an ordained preview on the back as well of this particular book. Cover's awesome. The interior art reminded me of Silvestri a little bit. Just like the line work and stuff like that. Not 100%, but really, really, really close off of that. The creative team on this is awesome. And I think with like all the Bad Idea books, it's a mini. So I can't anticipate. It doesn't say. I think it's 4 issues, if I'm not mistaken. The price point on it is $5.99, but you do get 48 pages. And the story itself, just Matt gave you enough in this first issue to say, holy crap, this is great. I want to know how it ends. This is sort of another take on the superhero trope. I didn't know it was a superhero book or a super team kind of superhero team book in a sense. And it just brought me back a little bit, especially when it did this one section. So you had sort of like the, I don't know if you can see it. If you're on video YouTube, they did the, there we go. Oh, right here. Ooh, this way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, and that way. You have like the names at the top and then sort of like a little brief intro of who the characters are. And it reminded me so much of like the Image 90 Days, where you had the entire group just drawn on a splash page and it would have their names and sort of like their dispositions and stuff like that, which was, I always found really cool. And it always seemed like back in the 90s, everybody always had like 5 or more on their team. And it was your typical team of, it consisted of a leader, it consisted of a bad attitude guy, it consisted of a large, hefty guy who was the muscle, and then a hot chick. And then you had some like demolition dude or something like that. Almost every single team was pretty much the same, but just different in design. This one was kind of like that, but different. Really cool concept. So like I said, it's in the genre of sort of like that superhero team. So you have 4 in the team, one called Deepfake, who is sort of like this AI robot android. Then you've got Spear, who's, I don't want to say Batman-ish, but I would say more like Guy Gardner, because he's a prick, but thinks he's the leader of the group. He's called Spear. You can guess what his weapon is. From the name. Another guy called Numb, who can't feel anything and supposed to be indestructible. So, and it looks like he's just all like muscle on the outside. So imagine if you ripped off your skin and you see the muscular underneath. That's what he looks like. Pretty cool. And then the main character that we're kind of basing the story around, called Saver. So your basic concept is Saver's ability is to be able to remember any point in time and then be able to go back to that point of time and then move forward from that. So it's sort of like a redo. So he can go back as far as he wants. He can go back, a couple seconds, couple minutes, a couple hours, couple weeks, couple years, whatever he wants. He just has to remember that point of time and then go back there. Now, if we left it there, and move the story along, then that would almost make what they did and what he did really godlike, because then he could have as many chances as he wants to redo something. What I really like about what Matt did in this book, and I'm saying his first name like I know him, Matt Kitt did in his book, is that there's a caveat to each one of their powers. So with Saver, he can go back to any point in time, but he has to live that time moving forward, which means if he goes back 15 minutes, he ages 15 minutes. He has to relive that time. If he goes back 10 years, he has to relive that time to the point that he gets to 10 years at the point where he jumped, which means he ages 10 years. No one around him does. So it's really bonkers, because he has, as he's using his power, he's getting older. So he has to be mindful in the jumps that he does, especially as you get later into the book. So in the very beginning, really cool way that Matt set up the book in regards to how his power is being used. They're dealing with this sort of elemental, if you could take a look there. And it's funny because what I really liked about it is if they didn't have him on this team, then this team would have been dead many times over. Just because as you're setting up a new team and you're, launching yourself into a world that has, these dangers, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you have these abilities, but the unpredictability of the bad guy that you're facing can cause you either harm and or death. So we see them die multiple times as he's resetting time and trying to figure out how to take down these bad guys. And in instances, it could be hours of his life. If he's just jumping back a couple minutes, you can guess how many times he's had to reboot time so they can finally take down whoever they need to take down. So what's really cool is that setup lets you know what the whole premise of the book is going to be. So basically we get into sort of like this event that happens where pretty much the world is destroyed. And every time he jumps back, no matter what he does differently, he can't change the outcome. So he has to jump back further and further each time, and each time the same outcome is happening over. So he's sort of in this loop of jumping back, but not being able to change anything up to that point, which is scary. And the stakes wouldn't be as high if there wasn't something that anchored it all together. And so what anchors it all together is the relationship that he has with this woman, he's really close to. They have a very personal relationship. So every time he jumps, you can see him getting older. There's more gray in his hair, and she knows what he does, and she knows every time he jumps because she can see him getting older. And so we see this particular scene in the very beginning multiple times throughout the book, but there's one twist at the very end of the book with this particular scene that we did not see coming, which was great. So all in all, Save Now, dude, it had everything. One, it surprised me because I didn't know it was going to be a superhero team book, but it's not a cheesy superhero team book. These guys are just put together. I think their name is, what is it? It's IIC, the International something. I'll remember it for next time. But the personalities for each one in the group is so distinct, the voices that Matt Kitt gives them. The art of Tomas is just really solid. There's a lot of details in the pages, the facial expressions, the color that's added on to the book to set the tone is just really cool. And the way the story was moved along was just fantastic. And throwing in this, huge event that can't be figured out on top of the personal crisis that he's dealing with at the very end just ups the stakes in this particular book. So even though it did have a hefty price point of $5.99, You get 48 pages of that story, and then you get a preview of another book that's coming out from Bad Idea called Ordained. So you have sort of like the priest with his fists up. Goddamn, fighting priests. Yeah, it's all good. So check it out. I can't recommend this book enough. Matt Ken, I think I was introduced to him when he was doing, what was that, Exo Manowar? And then he did the whole Berserker series with Keanu Reeves, which was fantastic. Really solid writer. So if anything, you'll get a masterclass in story writing, but you'll get some great art, a really solid story. If you like superhero books, right up your alley. If that's not your cup of tea, there's enough in there to really just warrant a pickup of this issue. And it's hardly ever where I'm like, oh, you got to get this book. Dude, you got to get this book. It's pretty good. So you get a lot for your price point on there. Save Now, Bad Idea Comics, definitely was not a bad idea.
Nice.
All right.
That sounds great.
Yes, really good stuff. All right, you have one more, yes?
I got one more. This is from one of my favorites, Oni Press. They have an imprint called Spectre Vision, which is kind of fun. I like that. And this is called High Strangeness. Boy, you think $5.99 is a high price point? They call this high price point. This is $7.99. This book.
Holy crap!
Yes, and it is a 5-issue series, and I don't know if each issue is going to be at that same price point, but you do get a lot. Even though it is a regular, because a lot of times that $7.99 price point from an indie is going to be like, the big tabloid size or magazine size. This is a regular size comic, does have a healthy page count and a wealth of back matter, which I'll get to in a second. Basically, their log line for this it's a 5-issue series. Inspired by first-hand accounts of paranormal encounters within the dimly lit borderlands of human experience. This fall, enter an uncanny 5-part experiment in comic book storytelling with a lot of really good creative teams, because I guess each issue is going to be a different creative team telling a different story in a different year. So this is book 1, 1967. This centers on a journalist who has fallen on hard times. He's estranged from his wife. He works for a magazine, I believe in Chicago. He hasn't had a cover story in several years now. So his editor has a story in Indiana that he wants him to do, because this will put you back on the map. It has to do with an alien sighting and a missing person. And the reporter is like, no way. I'm not a National Enquirer guy. I'm not a tabloid guy. I'm a serious journalist. But as editor makes him go anyway to cover this story. So basically your setup is that there was a young couple who took a picture of a UFO and went public with it. And shortly after that picture gets published in the local paper, they are visited by some very strange men in black. And these are like, this isn't, J&K, from the Will Smith Two-Face movie. This is like a lot of encounters with men in black, canonically or historically. They're weird. There's just something really off about these guys. They don't speak right. They don't talk, they don't look at you right. And basically, she is confronted in her kitchen by these men in black. They're asking her about the UFO. Her boyfriend creeps out of the bedroom with a baseball bat, and she's like, do it. And so this first scene ends with this guy going after the men in black with a baseball bat. Then you're introduced to the reporter, and then he's sent to investigate the story. And he hits dead end after dead end. But as he's there, weird things start happening to him. And he starts to get pulled into this very strange world of the paranormal. He does find out exactly what happened as far as when he does investigate the house where they live, because this the girl went missing right after this encounter with these men in black in her home, and no one's heard from the boyfriend. So obviously the reporter thinks the boyfriend killed her. And he gets into their house. He does look at the clues left behind. He does find a major clue, which he's like, oh, this is, now I figured it out. He's able to track down the boyfriend, and he gets the full story from the boyfriend. So he was partly on the right track, but then there's other levels to it that are just beyond, his realm of understanding. And he gets further pulled into this world of the supernatural. He gets his cover story, he gets his story, but at what cost, Angel? At what cost? Because he go to his mind and his soul. So really fascinating. I thought the art. Let me get to the credits. So story is by Daniel Noah. It is written by Chris Condon and Daniel Noah. It is illustrated and colored by Dave Chisholm and lettered by Becca Carey, and edited by Bess Polaris, assistant editor Azat Sayadi, and designer Sarah Rockwell. There's also about a 7-page essay in the back by a man named Jim Perry, who is, you get a biography of him here, storyteller, ethnographer, producer, and entrepreneur exploring the edges of human experience. So this gives you a little context as to what high strangeness actually means. In the beginning there, the liminal crown. High strangeness is a term for phenomena so weird, so interconnected that once we allow it in, it feels as though the air we breathe and words we speak echo something once lost, a connection to time, space, reality itself, threads to our soul, or even something deeper. So that's exactly what happens. It's very David Lynchian, especially all the weird characters in the small town. Once the reporter starts investigating, like once he's there, he's practically run off the road, by some locals, gets a flat tire, goes to the local paper who initially published the story of the girl's UFO picture, sees a woman at a desk. She's when he walks in, assumes she's the receptionist. He's asking her where the editor is. She's like, because I want to talk to this guy, this editor. She's like, the editor's not a guy. I'm the editor. This is my paper, blah, blah, blah. But she's great. She's got like a sort of a Janine from Ghostbusters look.
Yeah, I see that.
But what's really neat is she's got this cigarette, and it's like this really long ash in each panel. And so if you ever see that in a movie and you're like, oh my God, same feeling, same vibe in this comic. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, like that was a great artistic touch. Again, you get a lot of weirdness. These red tones for when the weird stuff happens is very neat, very cool. So very weird, very David Lynch, a little bit of Kolchak the Night Stalker, if you're familiar with that show. Just a really odd, strange tale with quirky characters. I did some research on this. This reporter doesn't exist. The woman who went missing doesn't exist. This is very much a made-up story using tropes from what we know from people who have claimed to have experienced Men in Black or other encounters like that. But this combined with Red Book, I thought was a really good pairing, since Red Book is so steeped in historical accuracy, where this is just going off and doing its own thing. The next issue will be in 1975, and it looks like it's going to have to deal with some Bigfoots. So it's like each one's going to be a different paranormal trope. So I'm here for it. Again, that $7.99 price point is a little intimidating, but you get a really nice package for that. You get a nice, solid book, cardstock, glossy paper, nice heavy bond paper, and again, that lengthy essay in the back. We like back matter. We like to get a little more than just the main story. So this definitely delivered high strangeness from Oni Spectre Vision. If you really want some weird, this is good weird.
Okay. There you go. Get your weird on and whatnot. All right, cool. So you got yourself a couple of books that you can get for this week and for last week. So Save Now from Bad Idea. Like I said, I couldn't recommend it enough. Death to Pachuco from Image. High Strangeness from Oni, and Red Book from Dark Horse. Yeah, there's some good stuff coming out each week, which is fantastic.
Well, now for next week, you're going to go back in time a week.
Yes, I'm going to go back.
But we're going to be aged 2 weeks when we see.
We're going to be aged 2 weeks. So yes, I'm saving now for 2 weeks. All right, kiddies, that is all that we have for you this week. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast. Better yet, invite a whole bunch of people to just come on, because John and I love talking about comics, and we love representing the independent comic, those creators that just have their juices flowing. We want to just, spotlight them each week. If there's something that you're reading that you want us to review and or mention out there, just hit us up. Go to indiecreatorcomics.com. Just, find the message box on there and message us. If you want to know what we got going on, go to indiecreatorcomics.com as well. We've got our own set of books that we have on there, stuff that's coming out, including Project Shadowbreed, the Kickstarter launch, which will be happening in November. Like I said before, use that QR code to check them out as well. If you want to be on the podcast, if you got something coming up, whether it's crowdfunding, it's going to be on the shelves of your local comic book shop, whatever you got going on. Your creator want to talk about your project, just visit indiecreatorcomics.com. There's a link up on top that says podcast form. Fill it out. We've got, some guests lined up, and we're looking for more. We want to be able to spread the word on, all these creators that are out there with their creations, and, get it out to as many people as we can. Last but not least, please, please, please support your local comic book shops, because without them, we would not be able to do what we do every single week. John, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And if you know anything about Fair Lawn, New Jersey, especially these last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of construction right on River Road where The Joker's Child is. But that does not stop The Joker's Child, because we were open every day, even though the roads were closed. So if you happen to come down to Fair Lawn and you want to get to The Joker's Child, as long as it's not a Monday or a Thursday, we are going to be open, even if you can't go on the actual street. You can't park there. You just got to walk there. It's fine. There's also street fair coming up this weekend as well, so keep that in mind. But look, nothing can stop The Joker's Child, and we got a whole bunch of new old toys coming back in. We're going to get a whole bunch of new toys coming back in. Every week we got all the best new comics, and we'll even have comics from previous weeks, previous months, previous years. We got it. We'll get it to you at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Can't make it to The Joker's Child? Please, please, please patronize your local comic shop as well. Don't patronize them in the patronizing way. Patronizing them with your business and your support.
God, that was so patronizing.
I know, it felt really bad.
All right, kiddies. Until next week, please read something indie made and support